Item A, we do not have an official response from SHPO yet. We submitted initially, they requested more information, more details, and that was completed. We have also are in process of submitting from the beautification committee the lighting upgrades that were proposed. I'm not sure how that is going to be received, but it's in the queue process, so they can look at things holistically.
Did that go at the same time, Ed, or did you just got that, didn't you?
No, we just got it.
That's what I thought. Okay.
So that is in process. That will be out to them officially this week.
Okay.
With the appropriate documentation. Item B, fundraising options. I know you were just copied on the email.
And I had a conversation with Jody, or email exchange. She was not able, just double booked, wasn't able to come tonight, but she has it on her calendar for March. And she'll be here to answer any questions regarding fundraising, opportunities, options, to bounce things off of. So she'll be here next month. And so she's got enclosures and inserts for me, and so as soon as we have those, we'll have them next packet.
So am I safe to assume MSI doesn't have any more deliverables on that fundraising aspect?
No, I mean, this is fine. Jody we'll see what she's got, and then we'll see what we need to do.
Okay. Just a quick update on where we're at with the project. Monday, we had our first on-site job site meeting at 9 a.m. We went over several logistical items. Notably, the fire department was requesting access to the gate to the beach. Somewhere else that he would take care of that. So that's completed. The rig is now tented. Temp heat is being deployed as needed for work to continue. Some phases of the abatement have been completed, but will continue on an as-needed basis as windows are removed. The reclaim of brick has gone better than anticipated. However, it's been offset by the number of damaged bricks and displacement that are needed. We have requested an additional cost from MRI. This will be an insignificant number. It will be coming. A couple of loads of clay tile have landed on site, and the manufactured pieces were cross-checked with the city-approved samples that were retained by MSI. They matched and are approved for install. 3 to 4 more loads are anticipated. Again, we'll go through that big process to make sure everything matches. Friday, 2/14 should be considered a lost birthday for roofers in all trades. We did not have roofers on site. Weather conditions were not safe for working. MRI did have some men on site, but workload was reduced and productivity was mediocre at best. I was up on that third story on the scaffolding on Valentine's Day. It was better. So it was a good call not to be up there. A few sections of concrete tiles have been removed, substrate prepped to receive new. To date, the existing structure underneath those concrete tiles looks better than anticipated. We are running an allowance of up to 15% replacement. I mean, it's dangerous to assume this trend will continue, but we'll keep the city up to date on what we see. So.
And Adam, can you tell them, we thought of a long plywood, that was a discussion we had, but after they started picking it off, they discovered it was 1x6.
1x6 and battens and everything. There's been a couple different things we've seen, but it's looking better than we thought it would. So.
Which Dave brought up when we were talking about it earlier, but the fact that it's 1x6, if you've got that running along the ridge or running along the perimeter, you're replacing 1x versus a whole sheet of plywood, a whole 4x sheet. So we're talking about 15%. We set that number out 15%. I remember Rich made such a big deal out of that, and that's why I wanted to capture that. If it's 1x6s and they discover, where they've been is where we've had the leaks. They haven't discovered them, but I think I was at the job meeting Monday. I think their main concern are the valleys. That's where they've had the leaks up on our, what do you call those, those 4 corners where the valleys are. That's where they were concerned they were going to have the damage, and so we'll see when they start picking that apart. But right now, I'm optimistic, and that I was encouraged to hear that. So
luck has been on our side so far. So
go ahead.
A few walkthrough dates will be established for Stephanie to walk through with potential clients in the ballroom in March and April. We're still trying to establish those dates in conjunction with Stephanie. While not ideal, it isn't, we also realize that the revenue that they generate pays these bills, so we want to work in tandem with her to make sure that she's able to get her things.
And Adam, let me just explain. She normally does her weekly things, but what she's doing now is getting them as a group and doing a tour on a weekend. So she has for a Saturday and Sunday, one in March, one in April. And so we determined our Monday of Sunday would be probably the best because there are Saturdays they probably will be working, especially as we start getting going with good weather. The guy's going to be working on Saturdays, and I don't want a safety issue with people getting in and out of there. So Adam and we've talked about doing Sundays only. She's thinking she'll have a whole group of people on both those days to get them through tour, safety, the whole deal through the elevator, but these guys are going to coordinate that. I appreciate that.
So Sundays?
I would go, unless you're not working on a Saturday, but I would head towards a Sunday just in case you need a Saturday for a work day. And she was fine with that as well. So
Okay.
you'll just have to let me know if you want to let Stephanie know. CC, Dave, or
Okay, bad news is that as we were reaching and looking at some of the chimney primarily, as well as some of the surrounds around the clear story windows, we found that there were some more damaged brick up there. We issued a field work order authorization for up to an additional 700 brick that may need to be done. We had 200 in our base contract, but we feel we may need to do an additional 700. But given the quantity of what we're talking about, we asked them and we pressed them, if we're doing this kind of quantity, we're not expecting to apply the same unit price. This puts it in a whole different ballgame. So we are expecting more of a time and material not to exceed to try to keep the cost on that as low as possible. But just by sheer numbers, because I'm a numbers guy, if you did the worst case scenario and you did 700 brick times, I think it was 2875. And again, we had contingencies for all these things, expecting some of these things. That would be about 20,000 max. So that's what we feel the upper ceiling might be. So that's the bad news. The good news is that as we were doing our selective evaluation of all of the sills at the upper clear story windows, we found that the sills were in good shape and that most of the leakage for the upper clear story windows seemed to be coming more from the some gaps in the mortar and a couple of cracked brick on the sides of the windows. So we don't think it's coming in from the window sills, but more from the jams in the field of the windows. So good news is that we're not looking at peeling apart 28 different window sills and having to redo the window sills, which probably would have crept all the way up to as much as potentially the 20 grand anyway. So we're avoiding that work. And the bricks that we're talking about replacing by expanding the allowance up to 900 will take care of those additional brick that we have to replace at the upper clear story. So it's all in all better than we expected, I guess, but it's not without at least finding some things. And again, that's why we set the contingency, which actually is a good segue into the two documents that I handed out. The first one is a summary of the contingency. And if you skip down to the middle near the bottom, you can see that we started with a contingency of $169,243. We've got listed some items that we've talked previously about. For some of them are a little bit new. And I'll just go through them briefly. If anyone has any questions or they want to go into a little bit deeper dive on any of the items, I'd be happy to do that. But as we were doing the asbestos testing and consulting, we authorized 79 additional samples and the analysis for those samples. That cost came out to $1,548. Item number 2 is the abatement itself for the work that we went out and we got bids for. That was for $4,390. Item number 3, because we deferred the first floor window replacement to the 2021 construction season, there is abatement of, I think it's roughly 7 to 10 windows on the first floor and a little bit of some caulk that came back hot that we had to do. So the cost for them to push that work back to 2021 came out to $1,295. Item number 4, we had issued a field work authorization for them to do a little bit of some brick removal at the balcony to verify the structural integrity at the arches. The balconies seem to be the area where, I don't know if it's because the wind whipping the moisture up off the lake, that seemed to be the area that was most severely damaged, and that's where we efforted most of our construction money at. When we did the removal of the south side as we had expected, we knew that there was a little bit more work that was needed, so we asked them to do a little bit deeper, to not only go just to the top of the arches, but to dig a little bit deeper down to make sure that everything we're building the new work back on was solid and sturdy. So we did a little bit of additional removal there. One of the items that came back hot for the asbestos was the sealant that was used where you had a little bit of cracking on some of the capstones. So they will propose, or not propose, but they have proposed the caulking for those capstones where the asbestos containing caulk had been removed, so that would be a repair from an asbestos material. And then to try to do our best and make sure that the repairs that we're doing will last, we are asking them to also include a membrane below the new capstones that will help keep water from infiltrating down into the face brick from the capstone. So all of those 3 items together we issued on a field work authorization, and that cost came out to $3,512. And then the last item for the contingency is the other additional added cost to delay the first floor windows to 2021. The first item, the $59.73, is the cost from the manufacturer themselves to delay the first floor windows into 2021. The second cost of $475 is simply the labor escalator for the installer to come back and do those windows in 2021 instead of the current season. So those are the first 2. In addition to that, in the interest of making sure that we have the absolute best chance of hitting all of our dates, we did ask the window manufacturer to split the shipments and do an early delivery of the window. They called them the receptors. Essentially, this is all the framework that they anchor to the brick. We wanted to get that on site as early as possible so that they can start the window replacement work ahead of the bulk of the windows arriving on site. So that cost came out to $2,100. So total of all of those items is a little over $19,000. Subtract that from the $169, and we're running about $150,000 left for contingency. And this is about a month into the project, and really, I think at this point, Adam, if you would agree, we've pretty much got through our most uncertain point being the brick removal and the top pointing. So I think we're over that hurdle. We still have a little bit of roof replacement or roof removal to find out, just to make sure we don't have any surprises. But again, as Adam said, the early indication is that the substrates are in a little bit better shape than we thought rather than the other way. So actually at this point, I'm rather pleased that this is where we stand right now.
You cannot do that and then bring that to the city, and then the city can really provide us the direction to say, this is the way we want to go forward.
There has to be an
Really,
opportunity to
to
negotiate.
start the
With all the ones I've looked at,
negotiating
we can't do any going back to them until they give it to us, because they may come back and say, we're okay with 2 long windows, or we're okay with this because of this, we're okay with this. We just need their verdict. We need to know what their judgment is on it, because I mean, Dan and Victor and I talked about it, and I mean, they have to negotiate. I mean, we have put forth great effort to be more significant than it is currently. Windows, roof, we're talking about going to plaster ceiling. I mean, all these things that we've done it right.
Yeah.
There should be some goodness coming the other way.
Within the submittal is a narrative that goes along with, who is doing the work. We are doing the work. This is what the city wants. This is the great lengths and the cost that the city has already bared to keep this historically significant. And once we get that feedback back, I will provide the entire submittal to the city for review, so they know exactly where their position is going to be with them, and how to move forward would then be PHLC's move.
Yeah, we've been assembling that information so that they'll be able to tell them, this is exactly how much money we spent upgrading the roof to clay tile. This is exactly how much money we've spent on using the historically authentic windows instead of the others. So we've been assembling that information to build our case for negotiation, I guess.
As well as what it currently was. I mean, you've got
Right.
aluminum storefront in several areas right now, which obviously is not historically significant. However, the city spent the money to do it correctly, including even the simulated steel sash on each side. So
The air conditioner sticking out in the middle of it.
yeah, we're giving.
There's some things that just really were not appealing or historic.
We're doing our best to put you in a strong position to negotiate.
And again, it doesn't make sense for the city to pay MSI to go with all the efforts of defending something that we don't even know. I've been in that position where you defend, and they're like, we're gonna give it to you. What do you, I mean, what are you arguing about? I mean, so we have to find out what they're willing, if they're not willing to give us anything that we've asked for, or give a nod to then that's when, and honestly, that's when we have to look at it and say, hey, is historic significance, I've heard a lot of rumblings and grumblings that people think the design they've seen online, and they think Chippo should be on board with that, so we'll have to see where that goes, so. Anything else?
I expect closure on that and the package delivered to you prior to the next meeting, so we can really move forward.
Yeah. Okay, any questions?